All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have Dr. Bradley Nelson here with me on the show. Bradley is a veteran holistic physician and author of the best-selling Emotion Code and Body Code books. Really excited to have you here, Brad. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Well, thank you, Brandon. It's really great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So I'm going to start you off with my cliche opening question, and it is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You got 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
Well, my passion is turning regular people into healers. The birthright of every man and woman and child on this planet is to be a healer. And somewhere long ago, we lost that idea. But my mission in this world is to bring that birthright back to people, to give that birthright back. And people are reclaiming that ability to be able to heal themselves, to heal their loved ones, their family members. And it's happening all over the world in many, many languages. And people are finding out that there's so much that they can do themselves to influence their own health and the health of their loved ones.
Yeah, I saw a quote the other day, and it's like, if you're not acting as your own physician, it was pretty harsh, by the way. I forget who it was. It was like, if you're not acting as your own physician, you're an idiot. And so, yeah, I mean, it jumped out. It was memorable. Let's just say that. Well, I definitely want to dive into this idea that everyone is their own healer and hear more about what you mean. But before we do that, if you would just set us up by sharing whatever feels relevant to share regarding your backstory.
Well, you know, I started out as a computer programmer back in the early 1980s. And when I got into practice, I gradually came to understand that the human body is itself a computer. And you can ask questions and get answers from that internal computer. And that's a basic, very fundamental understanding of the work that we do. Now, it took me a while to figure this out because if you think about the interface that we use, the interface is that that connection that enables us to communicate to a computer. And so for my laptop here, it's the screen and it's the keyboard. If you're using your phone, the interface is the screen on the phone and then your finger, and you can touch things and interact. But with the human body, the interface is a binary interface, which means it's yes or no. And the subconscious mind will answer any question that you want as long as the answer can come back as a yes or a no. It can't really elaborate. What I found during the years that I was in practice is that I could ask questions of my patients' subconscious minds and I could get answers. See, the subconscious mind is about 1 trillion times smarter than the conscious mind. And the subconscious is the part of you that is digesting your breakfast and turning it into new cells and new hormones. And it's a level of intelligence beyond our ability to really comprehend. Right. And so we can connect that subconscious mind within each person has all the answers. And during the last 10 years of my practice, most of the people that I saw had been told there was really no hope for them at all. And yet I was able to get them well in almost all cases because I knew how to communicate with the subconscious mind, which is where all of the answers actually were. So this is an enormously powerful paradigm shifting understanding that I believe ultimately is going to change everything about how we take care of ourselves. Wow. And it's high time.
Wow.
Really.
So you started off as a computer programmer, which is really interesting, which is very much like ones and zeros. And then you made the connection that, hold on, we're sort of like organic computers in a sense. And we have access to, let's say if my conscious mind is just my laptop disconnected and my subconscious is connected to the internet and all the information, beyond this one machine. Would you say that's a fair comparison? To when you talk about how much smarter the internet would be than my laptop with whatever information I have stored on it?
Well, it's a comparison, and it's a good place to start from. But the subconscious mind is also connected into what has been variously called the morphic field, the light of Christ, the database of universal intelligence. It goes by lots of different names, but basically, it has to do with the fact that with the understandings of quantum physics, we really are truly all connected. And one of my favorite scientists is Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, who one of the only guys that I know who actually did a TED Talk that was then banned from TED. He's really a genius. Anyway, but people didn't like what he had to say. But they did these studies where they wanted to see when dogs will go to the window or to the door and wait for their owner. Because when the owner gets home, the dog is always there waiting, right? And they wanted to know, well, when does the dog go to the window? And some people said, well, it's when the dog hears the owner's car, because dogs have supernatural hearing and they can tell the owner's car from other cars. And other people said, no, it's because the dog has kind of an internal timer. It knows what time the owner gets home. So what they did is they put video cameras on these dogs, and they found that at the moment the owner had a thought of going home, that's when the dog would go to the window, right? The name of that book is, it's really funny. It's called Dogs That Know When Their Owners Are Coming
aptly
Home.
Name. They nailed it.
Right, exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, really funny.
You know, that reminds me of the study that they did. I'm going blank on the gentleman's name, from Institute of Noetic Sciences, I believe. Shoot, I can look it up. But basically they would hook people up to a computer, you know, monitor their brain waves and show them different images of, you know, just flash different images. And what they found was, if they were going to show them something like, let's say, more traumatic, or, you know, a split second before that would happen, they would, it would register. And so it was like, well, this is evidence of precognition regarding what was to come. It was like they're plain as day.
Yes.
And so it reminds me of that. When you think of the dog, you know, sort of responding before you know, it actually happened.
Oh, it's really fascinating. You know, one of the things that we teach people is when they learn how to use the emotion code, they learn how to use the body code, they're doing muscle testing of some kind on other people or on themselves. And we teach a number of different methods.
That's what I was going to get to. Essentially, like power versus force.
Brandon, if I were
sort of,
yeah, exactly. So if I were there with you, for example, if you were to hold your arm out parallel to the floor, and if you were to make a true statement like, my name is Brandon, if I were to press down on your arm, you'd be able to resist me. But if you made an untrue statement like, oh, my name is Bob, then when you tried to resist against my downward pressure, you wouldn't be able to, your arm would go down. And so we teach people lots of different methods of doing this, and you can do this on your own body. There are different ways of doing it and getting answers from your own subconscious mind, your own internal computer. But one of the things that everybody notices is that before long, as they're doing this work, they'll have this experience where a split second before they get the answer on the muscle test, they will know what the answer is going to be. And that's that precognition thing that you're talking about. And that's that, I believe, really is just your intuition. And the more you do this kind of work, the better at it you become. And, you know, until you can become really, you can operate solely on intuition. When I was in my practice, I would have days where I would operate just on intuition if I was feeling really strong and healthy. And, but usually I use muscle testing myself, and I'll ask questions and get answers on my own body for myself, or also for other people with permission. And we teach how to do that. But I have a daughter who is 23 now, and she learned how to do muscle testing and how to get answers when she was about 13 years old. And after about a month or so, she came to me and she said, Dad, and she was having great results. working on her friends and on her friends' parents. And she came to me after about a month and she said, Dad, I don't really need to use muscle testing anymore because I just know what the answers are going to be already. And so that's exactly what you're talking about with that study that was done. It's true. We have access to far more power than we ever thought ourselves capable
being
of.
sensitive to, really being sensitive. I think the muscle testing probably is really helpful because it gives us this permission slip, this physical outlet. And then it's kind of like, in your daughter's case, what I would speculate is, okay, she's using this tool. And then by using this tool, it's honing her awareness to what the answer is. Then she's starting to notice, hold on, I'm knowing actually a moment before the arm goes weak or goes strong. Oh, hold on, I can just cut this step out completely. But she needed that step to get there.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so, like I said, we all have this birthright to be healers, but somewhere long ago, we gave that up. And so we're also conditioned and programmed in society, in the West at least, that if we have some kind of a problem, we need to go and see a doctor. And of course, sometimes that's extremely appropriate to go see a doctor. Most of the time, though, we don't need drugs or surgery, and that's really what doctors offer, at least Western medical doctors. And so to be able to ask questions and get answers from your own body or from someone else's body is just such an incredibly valuable, incredibly powerful thing. And I'll tell you what happened to me. We've got two books. We have the Emotion Code, which is all about getting rid of your emotional baggage. And you can find and remove your own emotional baggage using muscle testing. And then our new book is it's called The Body Code. And the Body Code is just an expansion of the Emotion Code. And it's really how you can find and correct imbalances in these 6 key areas.
Can you rattle those off for those who aren't watching?
Yeah. Sure. The 6 key areas are pathogens. Let me back up. When I was in practice, I learned that I could ask questions of my patients' subconscious minds, and the answers would manifest on their physical bodies. So I could get a yes or a no answer from a patient. And so because I was a computer programmer before I became a doctor, I always had a computer there with me. And I was always trying to catalog and organize the things that I was finding with my patients and the imbalances that they had, the things that they were really suffering from, because I was hyper-focused and really obsessed with getting to the underlying causes of their problems. I didn't want to give them a Band-Aid. I wanted to actually figure out what was really wrong and actually fix them. And so I was extremely successful at doing that. But what I found over the years is that all of the imbalances that we suffer from can be organized. And I was able to organize them into 6 different categories. So one category is pathogens. We all know about viruses and bacteria and parasites and things. If those are in your body and have set up housekeeping, you've got to get rid of those. Another kind of imbalance has to do with energies. And those are, for example, trapped emotional energies that are left over from some experiences that you've gone through that you'd rather not have gone through. Trauma energies, things like that. Physical, mental, emotional. There are misalignments that can happen. Misalignments of bone, of any kind of tissue. If you've got any kind of tissue that's misaligned, it's not going to function like it should. Another category is what we call circuits and systems. That has to do with the circuitry of the body. All the organs and glands, essentially, I found have an electrical circuit, and those circuits can be blown, just like the fuses in your house can be blown, and then that's going to create other kinds of problems. It also has to do in that area with connections between the spirit and the physical body, and some pretty exotic things, but that I found to be incredibly powerful. Another category is toxins, of course. We all know about toxins and how toxic the environment is now, and things like electromagnetic fields, dental toxins, biological toxins, vaccines, all kinds of things. Another category is misalignments, or sorry, nutrition and lifestyle is another category. And that has to do with having the right nutrients, the right vitamins, the right minerals, as well as a lot of other things. And so there are these 6 categories. And so what I found was that I could ask my patients' subconscious minds what they needed, what kind of imbalances they had. And then we could address those imbalances together. And by doing so, we could get great results. Let me share one story with you. I spoke at a fibromyalgia support group many years ago at a hospital. And the group disbanded shortly after I spoke. And I've always, kind of felt guilty about that. I hope they didn't do that because of me. I don't know. But anyway, while I was there, I spoke for about an hour. And there was a woman that was sitting in the audience that I noticed was crying. The whole time I spoke, just kind of sitting there quietly crying. And when I was done, she came up to me, and I was having a little bit of a hard time understanding her because she was really in an emotional state. She said that she'd had fibromyalgia, which is pain throughout the body that has, of course, no known cause and no known cure, et cetera. And she'd had this for 19 years, and that she cried every day because the pain was so great. But she was crying that day because it was the first time she had ever heard any doctor say that there might be hope for her to get well. All the other 9 doctors that she'd seen had told her there was no hope for her at all. She'd never get well. She'd have to live with this pain the rest of her life. So, so she came into my office, and to give you an idea how this can work, we found imbalances in all 6 of these areas. She had lots of misalignment. She had lots of emotional baggage. She had multiple different infections going on, low level, low grade in her body that probably would not even show up on a medical test, on a laboratory test, but yet were there. And we had to deal with those. She had lots of nutritional deficiencies. She was very toxic. All of her organs and all of her glands and chakras and meridians were all out of balance. And so I started working on these things as rapidly as I could. And within about 3 weeks, she was totally pain-free for the first time really in almost 2 decades. And that's the kind of thing that can be done when you actually go to the source. And this is, I just can't overemphasize really how powerful this understanding is. And so what happened was about a year after the Emotion Code book came out, that was in 2007, one morning I woke up and my mind was full of instruction. So if you can imagine this, I woke up and I was told, not by my own mind, but by
something beyond
the mind of God or the universe, or the mind of the beyond, very specifically. And I was told, you need to take everything that you've learned about natural healing and put it into a self-study course that anyone can learn and make it available to everyone everywhere. And so I remember thinking, well, are you sure about this? This seems like it might require some actual work. Being a little lazy, I was worried. But anyway, so it took a year to create the first version of that software and that home study program, which is really the Body Code. And now we have this book called The Body Code, which teaches you how you can get answers, and you can do this yourself. And that's the beauty of this, is that it's very democratizing. You don't have to pay someone else to help you. You can if you want to. I mean, we've certified around 12,000 practitioners now in over 80 countries around the world, but you can do this yourself. And we have people getting great results all over the world, even with animals, because animals develop emotional baggage and they have imbalances as well. And their subconscious minds are also very willing to give up their answers.
Wow.
So
yeah, what a trip. Yeah, what a trip.
It's a lot of fun. It is a trip.
So when you talk about accessing the subconscious, what in this, infinitely more intelligent amount of information, I mean, do you believe it's communicating with us in sort of ones and zeros, yeses and nos, just because it's like, okay, our conscious mind is so dumb comparatively. Like, okay, this is the only thing that we can get through. Let's just like we can speak this language of yes and no with from subconscious to conscious.
Well, this, I think most of the time we're so busy and so distracted that we don't hear the answers that our subconscious mind is giving us. It's kind of like prayer. We might ask for help from prayer, but then right away we're listening to loud music or watching TV, or we're distracted, so we're not really listening. And the answers that come either from the higher power to us, from angels to us, or from our own subconscious minds are usually very subtle. They're like a little thought or an idea or an impression or a feeling. And oftentimes we're so distracted we miss those, especially in this day and age where our phone is pinging about every minute probably for a lot of us, and we're kind of conditioned, oh, I want to know what that is. And so now we're distracted and we've missed something. So yeah, the subconscious mind will communicate with us. I mean, you've had experiences where, for example, you think about somebody and suddenly they call you. Those kinds of precognition experiences. I think those are kind of universal to all of us, that at times we have those, and I think that those are an indicator of they're an indicator of what we're actually capable of with a little bit of training and a little bit of focus. But and I'm not saying that I'm anything special about any of that kind of thing. I use muscle testing to get answers, and I'm just like everybody else. But one of the fun things about this is that it's easy enough that kids can do it. In fact, one of my favorite stories is from a woman that came to one of our events, and she said that she had started reading the Emotion Code book, and her son had started reading it and listening to it as well. And he started practicing with his friends, doing muscle testing and getting answers. And she thought it was cute, but didn't pay too much attention. But a couple of weeks went by, and one day the phone rings, and the woman that is calling identifies herself as the mother of one of this woman's son's friends. And she said, listen, I need to talk to you. She said, my son has had a severe phobia of water all of his life. And, you can have a phobia to anything. And he had a phobia to water, of all things. And she said, it's been very disruptive to our life as a family and to his life. And we've tried everything to fix this. We've taken him to all kinds of people, and nothing has ever touched this. She said, right now I'm at the community pool. My son is out playing in the water with the other boys for the first time in his entire life. She said, your son did this to him. She said, how is this even possible? What is he doing? And that's the emotion code, see, because emotional baggage, trapped emotions, we call them, can really have a very disruptive influence on our lives. And that's really the beginning point, I think, of all of this, is that as I was trying to help my patients get well, what I gradually came to understand was that all of my patients, no matter how old or young they were, no matter their sex or their problems, it didn't make any difference whether they were dealing with mental or emotional issues or physical problems, if it was infertility or asthma or digestive problems or anxiety or panic attacks or depression or phobias or eating disorders, or if they had migraine headaches or back pain or neck pain or knee pain or whatever. All of them had something in common, and that was what I came to call their emotional baggage. It was these emotional energies that had become trapped in their bodies during some emotional event that they'd experienced. And I found that by identifying and releasing those emotional energies, things would get better and things would improve, sometimes instantaneously. And that's really why I wrote this book, The Emotion Code, first, because people need to know what a huge role their emotional baggage is playing in their life and how it can be short-circuiting their life and contributing to disease. Every disease process that I've seen in 35 years has had emotional
Sure.
baggage as a component, but it's easy to find and
Mm.
fix, and you can do it
Yeah,
yourself.
I'm curious about that, and of course, you hear a lot of that these days, and I agree from from what I know, it just makes so much sense that it's trauma or stagnant emotions that sort of um, lodge themselves in our biological system, and when you say it's relatively easy to figure it out, can you elaborate on that? I mean, I've gotten it as an example. I've been really blessed with my physiology and health, and whole life, rarely sick, never been to in a hospital, and yet, I mean, I've got an example of something. I'm like, where did this come from? Why? How do I get rid of it? Is a little bit of shoulder pain. I've been going to the gym more in the last year, and I noticed, oh, this shoulder's a little weak. There's like a pain. It's not
Mhm.
something that's life threatening or crippling or anything like that, but it's I mean, I feel it. I feel it when I lay on that side, and I don't remember an injury. I don't remember and so I'm curious, using that as an example. Well, what would you
Yeah.
say to do?
Well, is it bothering you right
Yeah,
now? Can
maybe
you
a
feel
little.
it?
Yeah, if I move it just the right way and kind of feel into it, yep, I can.
Well, what I found, and try to imagine this. I'm in this practice. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
solo practitioner. It's just me. I've got my staff, and it's kind of like a laboratory in a sense that I have people coming in day after day, year after year, with all kinds of different problems. And the longer I was in practice, the more varied the problems became and the more difficult they became. But what I found was, as I was able to communicate to my patients' subconscious minds and ask questions about what was really going on, the number one most common reason for everything was emotional baggage. So, if you'd like, what we can do is I can
Mm,
actually tune into you remotely, and we can just see if there's any emotional baggage affecting your shoulder, and it
okay.
might make a
Yeah,
difference. I don't
sure.
know.
Yeah, I'm
You want
game.
to do that? All right, cool. So let me see if I've got a good chart here that I can hold up for
Sure.
you. So, so we have a chart of
Mm-hmm.
emotions that looks like
Mm-hmm.
this, and this is in the book. So we have two columns and 6 rows. There are 60 emotions in this chart, and there are things like failure and grief and guilt and disgust
Mm-hmm.
and betrayal and so on. The whole range of emotions. So, first of all, what we'll do is we need to make a connection. Okay. Um, if you and I were in the same room, it would be easy. You could hold out your arm and I could get
Mm-hmm.
yes and no answers from your body. But since you're at a distance, we're going to do this a little bit differently. And the way we do this is first thing we like to do is take a moment and ask for some help
Mm-hmm.
from up above. I believe in God. Uh, Different people believe in different things. And I don't think it makes too much difference, but asking for help is how we
Sure.
start this off. So give me just a moment. Okay, cool. Now, the subconscious mind has this amazing ability built right into it to set aside its own needs to act on behalf of someone else. And we call this working by proxy. So, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to be using a form of muscle testing that we call the
Mm-hmm.
ring in
I've
ring
seen people do
method.
this.
Okay. I'm going to move this just a little bit. Yeah. So, I'm going to make a ring with both hands, with my thumb and my forefinger. Okay. Or you can use any finger. And I'm going to put a ring inside of a ring. Okay. So it looks like this. And then as I ask questions, you'll see the rings will stay
Mm-hmm.
together for yes, or they'll weaken for no. And that's my own body responding. And so let's ask, first of all, are we connected energetically? Can I act as proxy for you? And I get a yes answer. So this is a very, very powerful wireless
Cool.
connection. I believe it's the most powerful kind of connection that can be made in quantum physics. It works at any distance. We have thousands and tens and probably hundreds of thousands of people now doing this all over the world. But anyway, I got a yes answer there. The rings stayed together.
That's when you
And so
tried to
that's a
pull
yes
through.
answer. So now what I
If it
want
was a
to,
no, you would have been able to
yeah,
slide through. It would have kind of broken. Got it.
yep. So are we connected energetically? We are. So to the point that if I say my name is Brandon, I actually get a yes answer. So the rings stay together. Is my name Brad? Not anymore, because my subconscious mind has totally set aside my needs to
Thank
act
you,
on your behalf.
Brad
It's really wild,
Subconscious.
but it works really, really well. Yes, indeed. It's an amazing gift. So let's ask, do you have a trapped emotion that we can release that's contributing to this problem with your shoulder? And the answer that I get is yes. Okay, that's also strong. See, now that answer is coming from your subconscious mind to mine, and then it's making a change in my muscle strength. Yes, is strong. So now what we do is we have our chart of emotions. There are 2 columns and 6 rows. So one of these emotions is the one that we're after. I don't know which one it is, and you don't know either, but your subconscious mind, and hence my subconscious mind, does know which one it is. So is it in column A in the chart? No. So we just got rid of 30 emotions. We know it has to be in column B. We have 30 left. So in column B, we can divide column B up into odd rows and even rows. And so we'll ask, all right, is this emotion in one of the odd rows in column B? No. So that means it has to be in an even row in column B, row 2 or 4 or 6. And so that means we have 15 emotions left. So is it in column B, row 2? No. In column B, row 4. It's in column B, row 4. So is the emotion depression? No. Is it frustration? No. Is it indecisiveness? And again, what I'm doing here, for those that aren't seeing what we're doing, I'm testing the strength of these rings, and they're weakening for no. So let's see here. Is it frustration or indecisiveness? No. Is it panic or taken for granted? And I get a no on all of those. Now, when that happens, it means that it means the subconscious mind has taken us as far as it can take us until we use a certain word, basically, because the subconscious is wanting us to know that this is an energy that did not really originate in your present lifespan. It's something that you received at conception from a parent. And so we call this an inherited trapped emotion. Is that what this is? I get a yes. So is it inherited depression or frustration or indecisiveness or panic? It's an inherited emotion of panic. So where'd you get this from? Did you get this from your mother? No, it came from your father. So your father shared this with you at conception. Now, scientists, they now know that animals that receive some kind of a traumatic experience will pass down somehow the memory or the feelings about that particular place, or up to 14 generations down the line so far. And they don't know how it works. They're looking at the DNA and they can't see the mechanism, but it's all quantum, and that's what this is. So did your father, and your subconscious mind knows the answers to these questions, did your father receive this emotion, this energy of panic, from someone earlier? Yes. So he got it at conception. From his father? No. From his mother. And did she get it from somebody earlier? Actually, no. So your father's mother, your grandmother, before your father was conceived, something happened in her life that the result of which was that she felt this very powerful emotion of panic. That energy became trapped in her body. And when she conceived your father, her subconscious mind, in essence, decided, it probably would be a good thing to pass this knowledge down so that maybe my offspring can avoid this same kind of situation. And I don't know if you know anything about what might have happened, but you probably don't. But something happened, and that's been passing down. So let's ask. I
do.
Now, Brandon, do you have
Bradley.
children? How many kids? You have a Bradley? Cool. So did you pass this to him when he was conceived? Yeah. Okay. So sometimes these trapped emotional energies will they'll be like a freight train traveling down generations and generations. I've seen these go back for sometimes dozens of generations in families. So the emotion is panic, came from your grandmother. You passed it to your son. You got it from your dad. Do we need to know anything else about this? Not really. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one hand and I'm just going to pass this hand over my forehead to the back of my neck a few times. 10 times, in fact. Okay. And the reason why we do that 10 times is because we're releasing this energy, not only from you, but also from them. In this case, from your dad, from your mom, and also from Bradley, which is a great name, by the way. So let's try moving that shoulder around now. Move that around. Let's see how that feels now compared to how it was feeling before.
Yeah, I'm really not feeling it at the moment. If I just moved it that way, I felt a little something,
Okay.
but it feels strong. It feels stronger in this moment than it did.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. And that's one of the things that I found that was really so amazing was that I had patients coming to me for all kinds of pain. And I found that the number one most common underlying cause of pain by far was emotional baggage. I mean, 90% or more of all the physical pain that people have is actually due to emotional baggage like this, to trapped emotions, sometimes inherited, sometimes from their own life. And when you release those trapped emotions, all of a sudden, pain can go away instantaneously. In fact, let me tell you a story. Years ago when I was in practice, a guy came in to see me. He had really severe low back pain. And it was about a 9 on a 0 to 10 scale. It had been going on for a number of weeks, and he was really desperate. He didn't know what to do. His next step was surgery, right? And so anyway, I tested him, and I found that he had, just using muscle testing, I found that he had a trapped emotion, and the emotion was anger, which is one of the ones in the chart. And we needed to know a little more about it according to his subconscious mind. That's a question that we ask. Do we need to know more about this? And in this case, his subconscious said yes. So I traced it back and found that it had occurred about 20 years before. And immediately he says, oh, yeah, so I know exactly what that's about. And I said, really? And he said that, what had happened was he was in this work situation where he had been wrongly accused of something. And he was just livid because he had not done anything wrong. And it was really upsetting, and he got really, really angry. Well, when you feel an emotion and you decide to really enhance it, which is what he did, you're setting the stage for that energy to become trapped. And so that's what happened to him. So that energy, and by the way, a trapped emotion, we believe, is literally like a ball of energy, a ball of emotional energy. In his case, this energy lodged in his low back. And so it had been there affecting his low back, distorting the energy field of his low back. And really, that's all the body is an energy field. So eventually it's going to have some kind of an effect, right? So 20 years later, he's in my office, and I release that trapped emotion by just passing my hand or a magnet down his back a few times. And the pain goes from 9 to 0 just that quick and instantly. And he can't believe it. He keeps bending over and walking around and twisting this way and that way and exclaiming. And I was great. I was grateful that it worked so well, but it was kind of miraculous. Well, the interesting thing about this is that not only did it change how he physically felt, and this is very, very common, but it was one of the first times that I had seen the kind of effect that releasing a trapped emotion can have on a person emotionally. He came back in a few days later, and he said to me, Dr. Nelson, he said, my back still doesn't hurt. He says, I still can't believe it. But he said, when I came in here, I had another problem that I did not tell you about. He said, for as long as I can remember, I've basically been what you'd call a rageaholic. And I've really got to watch the road rage, and I'm always yelling at my wife and my kids. And he said, it's not very fun. And he said, the moment that you released that trapped emotion of anger from me, I felt really different. He said, things that used to set me off don't set me off anymore. I just feel kind of relaxed. He said, "How did you do that?" And I said, "Well, I
Yeah.
don't really know
Wow.
exactly." Because I didn't
Wow.
know how it worked at the time. But that's what we believe. Now, if you think about it, look at all the 60 emotions on this list. Have you experienced any of these? Abandonment, discouragement, rejection, sadness, sorrow, anger, terror, feeling unsupported, feeling heartache, feeling vulnerable, feeling like a failure. I mean, on and on and on. There's 60 of these. And the problem is when these develop into trapped emotions, what they do is they gradually
Yeah.
begin to derail your life, you see, because you're not your trapped emotions, but they will drive you in certain directions. I always think of the Queen Mary, that I did flight
Oh yeah.
training years ago
I've
down
been
in
on a
Long Beach and
haunted
used to
tour of the
fly over
Queen
the
Mary
Queen.
once. At
Oh,
Halloween.
well, I never did go on it. Fun. But I flew over it a lot. And, the Queen Mary is a big ship. And if it's underway, it's forging ahead. But the tugboats will come along and they can move it around and move it into its berth and different things. And that's how that works. And that's kind of how trapped emotions are with us. They can, they're like tugboats that kind of can move us and deflect us from
Yeah.
going where we want to go.
It's funny you said with my father, panic is a thing. Like, I mean, that is my father has been pretty happy-go-lucky guy. Well, I'll give you a quick history. Up until my 11, 12-year-old, 12th birthday, around that time frame, he got very religious. Before that, he wasn't religious at all. And then he got very religious, and it led to a depression. And for a few years where he just did not feel worthy, and there was all this panic and fear around hell, and then fast forward, he kind of worked through that. Here we are decades later, and all of a sudden in the last year or so, it's come up again, maybe the last 2 years, where it's like, what happened? All of a sudden he's in this depressed, but it's almost like it's like a state of it's panic. Like, dad is this, being who is going to punish you because you're not worthy and good enough and you haven't gotten it right. You've been bad, kind of thing. And so it's interesting that that's the emotion, because that's a good one to describe what I can see my father really struggling with. It's fear. It's like,
Yeah, sure. Panic, fear. Well, what I would recommend for your dad, and by the way, we just released that trapped emotion
Wow.
of panic from him
Wow.
and you, and his mom
Wow.
and your son. So that's one of the really fun, powerful aspects of the emotion code, is that
Quantumly
when you're
entangled.
working on an emotional energy like this, that's
Yeah.
exactly right. Yep. And it's shared between people.
Wow.
It releases from everybody. And so, yeah. So I'll tell you something that would probably really help him. And that is to start watching near-death experiences. There are
It's funny you say
a
that,
lot of
because
YouTube
I'm
channels
really into
that
them. My brother's like kind of obsessed with them, and he's so sort of dogmatic in his religious belief.
They're fun.
He sort of like tunes anything out. It's like here's what we'll watch, things like that, or I'll talk about, obviously look at the podcast I do. I have all kinds of fascinating people like yourself on, and we talk about it all the time. And my brother will always make fun of my dad. He goes, well, we'll talk about whatever is fascinating, and then he'll like, well, he's not buying it. He's not buying it, So, and that's like kind of his thing. Is like, he just like tunes it out, It's interesting. He's a tough nut to crack, I'll tell you.
I saw a near-death experience a few weeks ago that I thought was really good. This guy went to the other side and he was gone for about 2 hours, and he came back remembering everything. And he learned some fascinating things. One of the things that they told him was that he had like an angel guide, right? And he was told that there are countless worlds that he could have gone to, but that he chose to go to the earth because of the fact that he wanted to progress faster, because there are things that exist, I guess, on the earth that don't necessarily exist in other worlds, like maybe war and just lots and lots of hardship and
More
difficulty
contrast
here
of
in this world.
more
I thought that was
contrast of
interesting.
positive and negative perhaps exists here. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm curious,
kind
and I
of.
don't want to make this all about
Yeah.
my ailments, but it brings it up. It's like, even if I could go back, I thought about, as we were doing it, is like, oh, what's my biggest ailment? My biggest ailment is, and you can probably see it here, is I get like, it's called malcesia. It's like rashiness on the skin. And so I'm curious, and I've tried to
Mhm.
go to a holistic doctor, and I've been doing different supplements and working on diet because it's probably gut related. But I often think, well, yes, it's gut related, and there's something else probably to it beyond strictly physical. And it's probably been my most severe thing. I mean, it'll get like really like dry and flaky. It's just like a yeast that appears and, just colors my skin. And then some days it'll be fine, and others. I'm curious, something
Yeah.
like that, is that usually from a different, would you approach that differently than a physical pain, or?
Well, what we can do is we can ask, because we're still
Yeah, I would
connected.
love to.
Yep.
I feel a little guilty because I
Uh,
don't want to make this all about me.
sure.
But as we're doing it, I'm thinking, oh, this is actually the biggest pain in my life. Like, so I'm just curious.
Well, let's see. And maybe there's emotional stuff there that's
Hmm.
imbalancing things, and that it may be just
Okay.
emotional baggage that's kind of the trigger. Let's take a look and see. So we can check this. So let's see if I'm still connected. My name is Brandon. Yeah, so we're still connected energetically. So first of all, let's ask if there's a trapped emotion. So do you have a trapped emotion that we can release that's contributing to this problem with the skin on your face? Actually, yes. Okay. So here's the chart. So let's determine what column the emotion is in. Is it in column A? And again, we're asking your subconscious mind. I don't know what it is, but A is weak, so it has to be in B. And is it in one of the odd rows in B? Yes. So is it in B1? No. B3, it's in B3. So that's these emotions right here: confusion, defensiveness, grief, self-abuse, and stubbornness. Let's see which one it is. Is it confusion or defensiveness? Is it grief or self-abuse? It's an emotion of self-abuse. Now, self-abuse usually results from bad internal dialogue. It's not usually hurting yourself physically, although it can be, but it's usually just bad internal dialogue where you get really upset at yourself about something. I was so stupid. I can't believe I did that. I should have known better. Oh my gosh. We all do dumb things. I mean, welcome to planet Earth, right? So let's ask, do we need to know more about this? And we do, actually. So in other words, to release a trapped emotion, sometimes we have to dig a little bit deeper. Sometimes the subconscious mind will make us dig a little bit to bring up some other information before the subconscious will allow that loop to be closed.
49.
So let's see here. How old are you right now, Brandon? 49. Did this happen earlier than 40? Yes. Earlier than 30? Yes. Earlier than 20? No. So it's between 20 and 30, between 20 to 25? No. 26, around 27, 28. It's around age 28.
You said I'm
so
in
self-abuse
B3,
around age 28. I don't know if that
and
rings
my
a
initials
bell
are BBB, and my birthday's July 28th,
You
and my
going
dad's
through anything
birthday.
emotional at
So
that time?
I always
Anything
notice
difficult?
that those things pop up for me, because like I have a crazy synchronicity with my birthday, and I always, yeah. So anyway, so it doesn't surprise me that it's B3 and 28.
Okay. Well, let's ask, is there anything else we need to know about this? Not really. So we can release this, okay? And again, I'm just taking a hand, passing it over the governing meridian, going over my forehead to the back of my neck a few times. And did we release that energy? We did. So now let's ask, do you have another trapped emotion that we can release that's contributing to this problem that you've been having with your skin? No. Is there some other kind of an imbalance? Actually, there is. And so what we would do, if it's not emotional, that's really where the body code comes in, okay? Because this covers all the other possibilities of things that it includes, of course, the emotions as well. But looking at these 6 imbalances on this chart, I can ask, is it on the right side? So in other words, your subconscious mind right now has an imbalance in mind of another underlying reason for this problem that you've been having. Is that true? I get a yes. So is this imbalance on the right side of the chart? No. Is it an energy of some kind? No. Is it something in circuits and systems? Yes. So we go to circuits and systems. And that's the red one on this page. Okay. And so in the book, it's going to take, and this is the Body Code book, it's going to take us to page 161. So when I go to that page, it looks like this. And what we'll do is we'll go into that area and let's see what shows up. So in the book, we have 4 different possibilities. We've got organs and glands, we've got disconnections, and then the systems of the body. So let's see what this is. Is it something on the left side of this page? No. Is it a gland or it's a disconnection actually? So in disconnections, and that takes us to page 223 in the book. Now, there's also an app that you can use that makes it easier to find these things. But this is what this page looks like. It's actually chapter 15 in the book. And disconnections have to do with the connections between the spirit and the physical body. You know, if you go to a funeral and you look at a person lying in the casket, obviously something is not the same. Something's gone out of them. Some light has gone out. The spirit has left the body. And so sometimes we have a disconnection going on. So let's see what kind of a disconnection this is. Let's see, spirit, physical. So it's actually what we call a spirit out of body disconnection, which is on page 229. So see, you can actually use the book and you can find things like this and fix things. So sometimes, usually as a result of some kind of trauma, either emotional or physical trauma, the spirit will leave the body to a degree. It's almost like it will become knocked ajar a little bit. And it's not that part of your spirit goes to the Bahamas or something. It's there with you, but it's not completely integrated into your physical body. See, the body itself is kind of like the hardware. It's like the machine. The spirit is like the software, right, that runs the machine. And those two need to be tightly integrated. And if they're not, things can go wrong. And so what's happening here with you is that you've got a little bit of an issue going on with your spirit and physical body. So let's ask, and all these questions are right in the book. So the first question is 100% of your spirit within your physical body? And the answer is no. So, well, how much of your spirit is within your physical body? Is 50% there? 60% strong. 70%, yep. 80, no. 75, no. 74, no. 73, 72, 71. So about 71% of your spirit is actually in your body.
Right.
Now, if your spirit leaves your body completely, of course, then you're dead, right? You die. But your spirit can be partly out of your body and you can still be alive and still function. But
is 100% the goal?
You'll notice that certain things don't work right. Some things, 100% is the goal. Yep. And so let's ask, is there anything that is creating this for you? Any kind of baggage creating this? Is there anything in the way of us releasing this? No. So I'm going to go ahead and just swipe a few times. And the intention here is to bring your spirit back into your physical body 100%. And hopefully to remain there until the end of your life, right? And so is your spirit back in your body now 100%? Yeah. And so you may notice that this creates a really nice shift for you.
Yeah, it seems so simple, right?
I've seen, it's such a simple thing, right? But it isn't something that we normally think of. It's so simple, and yet I've seen this do incredibly powerful things.
I'm excited to see if
so you never know.
I'll definitely stay in touch and keep you posted on how these things progress. I mean, you obviously have many decades of trial error and seeing positive results, and you know, so you seem confident Yeah. Thank you for taking the time to step through
Yeah,
that.
let
And
me
I'm
know how
sure
you
some
do.
people, I mean, it's a fascinating way you've laid it out. And it seems like, obviously
Sure.
the pro, you wrote the book um, and all that, but it seems like something that what I like about it is it seems like someone listening who's intrigued and now wants to do this for themselves, getting both books. One is one, if is what do you recommend? Is it, would the body code cover it all, or?
Well, the books really stand alone. It kind of depends on what your interest is. The emotion code is a great place to begin because it really lays out the quantum physics side of this and how it all works. But the body code also, it kind of depends on what you're drawn to. If you're interested in finding out how the whole thing works and how all the imbalances that we have to deal with as human beings and as animals can affect us, then the body code's the way to go. But
Yeah,
the emotion code also,
makes
they're
sense. Well,
great
so I want to
companion
go back
volumes. I
to real quick
recommend
what we
both,
just stepped through.
actually.
So I was at 71%. You do this very
Eventually.
simple, relatively simple identification technique, which is that where the power is, like bringing to your conscious awareness and then requesting, okay, I know what the problem is, and now I submit a request, to the subconscious too.
Yeah, it has to do. Yeah, I mean, if you look at it in terms of quantum physics, what we're doing really is we're finding a particular energetic state, a particular state of the quantum field in your body, right? And then what we're doing is we're collapsing that function into a different function that we have now chosen. So it's in quantum physics, it's like the collapsing of the wave function. We're choosing a different reality that is more functional for you. And in that moment, when I'm passing my hand or a magnet over the governing meridian, what we're doing is we're actually through intention, we're making that happen. And so there's no barrier of distance with this
remotely. Right.
And so that's how we have people all over the world doing this with people that are also all over the world. And by the way, let's check and see what percent of your spirit now is in your body. Is 100% of your spirit back in your body now? Actually, yeah, 100%. Now, if it wasn't, then it would there would probably mean that there's something else going on, maybe some emotional baggage or something that's interfering with that. But that's all. You can figure it all out. I mean, you just ask questions,
bringing it to light, and then saying, okay, now it's almost like, I think of Chat GPT and people talking a lot about that. And, as of this recording, that's a newer technology. And it's like, you have to know what to ask. And there's so much power there if you know what to ask. And that's what it kind of feels like to me, is like you're honing in on, exactly. I mean, Google, same thing. It's very powerful, but you need to know what to plug in to get to that website with the holy grail of what you're seeking. Right. So it seems similar to that. You're honing in on it and said, okay, I identified it. Now let's address and bring that forward.
Yeah. Yeah. The subconscious mind has a language, and the body code is how we learn that language.
Amazing. Well,
it's the language of the subconscious.
How it goes. And wow, I mean, we're already a little past an hour here. I didn't even get to a lot of the questions. If you have a few more minutes, well, if you're not in a big hurry, we'll I have a couple things I wanted to ask that we haven't gotten to. And one I'm curious about is you talk about heart walls being a barrier for people. And can you speak to that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, the ancient peoples believed that the heart was the seat of the soul and the source of love and creativity and romance. And, in the West, we've never really given any credence to those ancient civilizations' ideas about the heart, or really about healing or anything else. But what we're finding is that they were onto something. Because back in the 1960s, when doctors started doing heart transplants, one of the things that they began to find was that sometimes people would come back and they would report that weird things were going on. Their taste in music or food or sports, sometimes would have completely radically changed. Sometimes they'd have memories of being in places that they never in their lives had ever visited. And when these people were connected with the family of the heart donors, inevitably they would find out, well, yes,
Right.
our son loved to visit Paris. It was his favorite city in the world. And now you say you have memories of being in Paris, but you've never in your life ever been there. Well, those must be his memories. How weird is that? Right. And so we call that cellular memory. So there's something cosmic going on with the heart. Well, we now know that the heart has a lot of gray matter and white matter in it. And there's a little brain, that's what they call it, the little brain in the heart. And the heart, I believe, stores, it seems to store the memories of the things you really love and the affinities that you really have. And that's why, for example, a neighbor, best friend of a neighbor of ours had a heart transplant. And a big, tall, very masculine guy. After his heart transplant, he found that his car would automatically pull into Starbucks. And he'd find himself at the counter
Wow.
ordering a hazelnut latte. He didn't really know why.
Wow.
And then he found out later that that was the favorite drink of the woman whose heart was now beating in his chest, right? There's so many stories like this that are just unbelievable. This is another one of my favorite pastimes, is reading these. There are books written about this. But anyway, what we have found is that when a person is experiencing intense emotion and they feel like their heart is going to break, oftentimes, really what's happening there is that the heart, which I believe really is everything the ancients believed it to be, the seat of the soul, the source of love and creativity and romance and the core of our being. When your heart is under assault like that, the subconscious mind will put up a wall around the heart. And that wall is made of layers of your emotional baggage, your trapped emotions. And when this wall is put up, it makes it much more difficult for a person to fall in love, to stay in love, and to create that best destiny, I guess you could call it, that the perfect life that I believe is blueprinted in their heart. And so, and we've at first, when we discovered this, or really it was shown to us in a really interesting way that is in the book and the emotion code. It happened with my wife, and she had a heart wall. And I thought, okay, well, she's had some other odd things. She's probably the only person in the world that has this. We now know that about 93% of people have put up a wall. And after COVID, it might be even higher. I don't know, but we're trying to whittle that number down, because we know that we're going to reach a tipping point and it's going to result in transformation around the world, transformation of the planet on a macro level. It's a very, very important piece of the puzzle of mankind's progression in the eternities. And so when this wall is taken down, as you might imagine, people have creative ideas that start to flow often spontaneously. People fall in love who never thought they would. So that's the heart wall. And that actually it's all explained in the emotion code. We talk about it in the body code as well, but it's explained very fully in the emotion code book, a whole chapter about it. And you can learn how to do this yourself also, just by reading the book.
I'm sure many people that are listening are going to be curious to get one or both books, and definitely, like I said, I love this the power and simplicity. And going back, I referenced Power versus Force. And Dr. David Hawkins, that was his name. Yeah. And so that book seemed to have really rippled out and influenced a lot of people.
David Hawkins,
using kinesiology as such a simple tool. So, very, very interesting. I'd like, as we wind down, I'd love, you've shared a few good stories, but I love hearing, stories of synchronicity or serendipity or a positive paranormal story. So I'm curious, when I give you that prompt, if one in particular or multiple come up for you.
Well, I'll tell you the one that the one that comes up for me. It's actually a story that we included in the body code, and it's a fascinating story that I think you'll really like, and your listeners will enjoy too. So, in 2004, we were living in California, and we were about to move away to another state. And one day, just a few days before we moved, we weren't at home, and my wife has this sudden feeling that she needs to go home immediately. And so she jumps up and jumps in her car and takes off. And I wasn't sure what was going on. But anyway, she drove home. And as she's pulling up to our house, there's a young man that's walking away from our front door. And she gets out of the car and she stops him and says, "Is there anything I can do? Can I help you?" And he was kind of embarrassed, but he pointed across the street and he said, "That's my sister sitting in the car over there. And she wanted me to ask you about that car," pointing to this car that we had that was sitting in our driveway. Well, we were going to be packing up and moving in a few days. And we had kind of forgotten about this car. It was our daughter's car. And she'd gotten a different car. So this car had been sitting in the driveway for a couple of months, nobody driving it. And so it was a little on the dirty side, but there was no for sale sign or anything on it. And what we found out was that this young woman had left her abusive husband. And she had $200 to her name. She needed a car so she'd be able to find work and be able to travel. And she lived about an hour away. And she and her brother were driving around kind of aimlessly, but apparently, as the story ends, you'll realize it wasn't aimless, but they ended up in this residential area where we were. And she insisted that her brother stop and go to our door and ask about this car. Well, my wife kind of smiled because she realized we didn't have anybody to drive this car.
Wow.
And we didn't know what we were going to do with it. We'd totally forgotten about it. So she invited them in, and right around that time, I arrived home with the rest of our kids, and so this car was probably worth about $15,000 or something, 12 to 15, I suppose. And but all she had was $200. Well, we didn't know what we were going to do. We had just sold our house, and we didn't really need the money. And we said, "You know what? You need this car. We'll sell it to you for $200." And so we did. And then after she left, we started thinking, well, you know what? That's all the money she has. We took all the money she has. So we called her
and we $12,000 to $15,000 car.
So
based off of two people's intuitions coming together, like, wow.
Well,
right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of an amazing story, right? It solved a problem for us. We didn't know what we were going to do with the car. We didn't need the money. And, but she did. And so if you think about this now, if my wife if she had delayed, she had that feeling, you need to go home right now. If she had delayed in responding to that, she would have missed them completely. Because
what an incredible story.
Pulled up and
that's a really good one.
Isn't that amazing?
And I'm curious, did you stay in? What my mind instantly goes to with a story like that is, what is the karmic connection there between, you, your wife, this woman? Like, it's such a soul contract kind of rational logic doesn't play in, rational logic would say, what? You gave it away. You could just sold it for $15,000. There's other solutions that benefit you more. And yet you did this incredibly generous thing. Did you stay in touch with, did you stay in touch with this woman? Did you ever kind of report back about, no?
No, not really. But I remember she was from New Jersey, and she was. I remember.
Was she just dumbfounded that she had found a nice car for free?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But see, really, I think it's all about prayer, because my wife had been praying that she
Ah,
would be able to do
okay. Well,
something to help
that's an important piece of the story.
abused women in some way. And this woman was dry. Yes, I forgot that part, but that's a very important part, really critically important. The other thing, the other side of it, the other side of the equation was that this woman was driving
Yeah.
around and she was praying that she'd be able to find a
Wow.
car. And so
Yep.
God put
Wow.
it all
That's a
together,
good one. Yeah.
source
Thank you for
energy,
that
higher
share.
power, whatever you
I'm
want to call it.
inspired to go find a free new car. No.
Sure.
Oh man, this has been great. Really, really enjoyed dropping in with you, Brad, and I know the listeners have as well. Hearing your story and these techniques and all of it. Well, one last question I have before. Well, I have a couple final questions, quick ones, but one that I just brought up that I'm curious. You talked about um, like my grandmother passing down panic, and that's in my sort of recent family line.
Yeah.
What is your thoughts regarding, I imagine you're probably familiar with like Michael Newton's work, Journey of Souls or Destiny of Souls, and some of these ideas, and others out there who talk about baggage being passed on from previous lives. I'm curious what your thoughts are and how that plays into this, if you subscribe to that, and you know.
Well, we do find that people sometimes have emotional energy that occurred prior to the moment of conception,
Mm-hmm.
but that was not passed from somebody else, but that actually occurred to them. So it's very clear that before we come into this world, we're alive. I believe in a little bit of a different take on this than a lot of people. And, we all believe different things about this. And so we don't, in the emotion code, we just call it a preconception trapped emotion.
Yeah.
And then you can apply whatever
what the
your
origin
belief system dictates as far as what that's from or wherever. Yeah. But we do see these periodically. And my own belief about this from many years of testing and doing this work is this. I believe that before we come into this world, we live with God and we're in a place of perfect abundance and continual joy, and we have everything we need, and we don't have physical bodies, but we're spirit beings, and we can move and we can make decisions, and we're very sentient, and it's all about our own personal progress. And I think that our life here in this world is very much engineered with a lot of thought. The family that we're born into, the circumstances that we face, it's all very much designed, custom designed for us to help us grow in the ways we need to grow. Well, and that brings us to these preconception trapped emotions. We bring these preconception trapped emotions into this world, and my own personal belief is they come from sometimes they just come from that world that we're in, where maybe there are things that aren't quite going on that we would like, or they come from experiences more often where we are actually acting as an angel on assignment, shepherding some other human through their mortal experience. And if you think about, sometimes people die and they have these NDEs, and they'll talk about how, yeah, when I left my body, I could see my body, but I could also see some ancestors that were there. And I remember that guy, that's my great great grandfather, and so on. Or maybe one of those angels turns out to be a child that they have that they don't really remember, don't recognize until the child grows up. And then they realize, oh my gosh, that's the angel. My son is the angel that I saw when I had died. Mm-hmm. And so I think that I think it's very organized on the other side, and I think my own personal belief is we have all been here at least once, and I think probably multiple times as angels helping people go through their mortal experience. So, I mean, imagine if the person that you have been assigned to as an angel, they can't see you, they don't know that you're there, but you love them and you're there to help them. You're there to give them answers and give them guidance and answer their prayers and requests and so on. Imagine if that person meets some horrible fate and is murdered or is enslaved or something. Well, you're going to feel emotion about what's going on. And that emotional energy, you don't have to have a physical body for that emotional energy to become trapped within you. And so then later, maybe hundreds of years later or thousands of years later, when it's your turn to be born into a physical body, you bring that into this world with you.
That is an interesting
That's
twist.
how I
You're
look at it. It's
basically
kind of
saying, like, hey, this
an interesting
this
twist
can
maybe on things.
transpire when you're in the non-physical, and then you bring it here to clear it up in a sense.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, and I don't know. I mean, as far as have we lived other physical lifetimes before? Well, I don't know. There's a lot of evidence that points to that. I haven't found, I haven't quite figured it all out. I don't have all the answers. All I can share with you is where I'm at right now in my own.
That's fair and honest, and that's all
process
we can ask for.
Of trying to make sense of it all.
Yeah, I tend to believe, I mean, some of the stuff that I've seen where people have these things that they can't clear up, and then they, go into a past life regression, and, something happened to them that's somehow tied to the ailment, and then it clears it up. Whether that's a permission slip placebo kind of thing or not, I almost think it's all placebo when we, Bashar talks about, it's permission slip. Like, what do you need in order to realize that, as we started this episode off, we are all, everyone is a healer. And what story do you need around it? What technique, what permission slip that makes enough sense to your, logic, your heart, your mind, your soul, that you can say, yeah, I believe this technique is the one. And therefore that's the thing that frees it up. Who knows such things? I guess we'll find out one day when it's our turn to appear behind the veil. But in the meantime, it's fascinating to play around and see what works. And like I said, I'll keep everyone posted on my healing. I am choosing to believe that it worked marvelously. My soul is 100% back in my body. Thank you for that. So what is the best way for people to connect with you and, get in touch and get your books and all that jazz?
Well, our Prime website is discoverhealing.com, and we have a 14-day emotion code challenge where you can actually learn the emotion code. It's totally free. We'll send you a video a day for 14 days. You can learn how to do this. And if you like it, you can get the book. Of course, the books are available. The emotion code and the body code are available on Amazon, Audible, great. Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
There in the show notes as well for anyone who wants to check it out. I do have one final question for you, and it is this. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life, according to Dr. Bradley Nelson?
The meaning of life. Well, this life is all about our progress. I think that we have spent a long time waiting to come here. And we're here to learn for ourselves about the consequences of our choices. We choose good things and we learn, and we choose bad things and we learn. And ultimately, what life is about learning to love other people. It's about learning to have unconditional love and to become vessels of unconditional love. The more emotional baggage you get rid of, the better you're able to love others unconditionally. And if you can love others unconditionally, that, I believe, is the highest thing that you can really achieve in this world. And it's going to be well with you in the next world. If that's the kind of person that you have become.
I answered many years ago. I had I had a guy, there's this thing called chat roulette, like a long time ago. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but they would just randomly connect you with people's videos. And this is like, I don't know, 10 plus 12 years, 15 years ago. And I get this guy on the screen. You hit next, 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 and talk to whoever you feel intrigued to. And he had all this dark imagery and satanic, the star and the devil's horns and goat. But he then had a question on it. If you can answer this question, it will save your soul. And it's like, what has no conditions but one condition? And I instantly, like, the answer came to me. I was like, unconditional love. And he's like, took down the imagery, and some guy behind there, he's like, oh, thank God you got it right. I wasn't going to stop until someone got it. And I've been here for hours and you got it. Yeah. It was fun. Wow. So what has no conditions but one condition? Unconditional love. Well, Brad, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your work and wisdom. And thank all of you out there for tuning in your beautiful brainwaves and incredible hearts to another episode. Until next time, journey well.